Hello and welcome back to some more Bitburners. So in the last video I showed you guys how the Give Me More Money script works and how to run it, and hopefully you guys didn't really experience too many things that was wrong with it, but judging by the amount of comments from my latest videos, there really wasn't any issues that was raised by anyone, so I'm assuming that everything is all good. Um, but there were a few suggestions on how to improve the some of the existing scripts, including the Give Me More Money script. So in today's video, I'm gonna be covering some of these changes, some of the issues that was raised, and then also going over some of the changes on the GitHub repo, some of the processes that this channel involves, and then also what's going to happen moving forward from here. So it's going to be kind of a long video, so hopefully you watch until the end. So starting with some of the changes that was created, it's much easier to highlight that on in VS Code because it tells you all the summary of all the things that was updated. So starting with the launch fleet script, and this also applies to the give me more money script. Basically, one of the viewers raised an issue with the weekend threads calculation. If we click on this guy here, you would see that in the previous version of the launch fleet script, what this does is that it grabs the number of security levels that one thread can reduce our current security level by, and then calculates the number of threads that's required to decrease the current security level by the security threshold. So, for example, if the security threshold is, let's say, level 2, it's only gonna calculate the number of threads required to reduce the server's current security level by 2 levels, which doesn't really make sense. So to improve that, basically what we want to do is we want to do the same thing. So calculate the number of security levels that one thread can decrease our server's security by. But we need to calculate the difference between the current security level of that server by the security threshold to calculate the distance we need to decrease the current security level by. And then after that, we then pass that into our weekend threads calculation here. So I applied that in both the launch fleet script and also the give me more money script as well, which you can see down here. Alright, so the second change that I made, which is a very small change, is basically the corp recruiter runs into an infinite loop issue, which may freeze your game if you don't have enough money to hire the employees that you need. Basically, before I calculated the business funds from here, so I grabbed the corporation object from up here and then assign it to the variable, and then the business funds is then retrieved from this. But the problem with this is that the funds doesn't really update because the business object is static. So to fix this, we wanna call the get corporation function and then grab the funds so that this the corporation object is always dynamic. Alright, so that's the second change, very small and simple. And then the third change is related to how we retrieve the path to the server. Basically, the algorithm's the same. The only difference is that it's gonna automatically copy the connection string onto our clipboard. And then the last change that I made is allowing you to support um, the the maximum RAM. So this one I'm gonna require Miro to explain this. Um, Basically, in the previous version of the Give Me More Money script, how it works is that we specify the maximum number of RAM that we need to allocate on our server. So let's say that you pass in 0.9, home RAM 0.9. So what this means is that 90% of your home server's memory will always be used. So if there's scripts running and then there's no like this 90% threshold isn't met, what this one will do is that the launch fleets will fill in these I guess free memory using some of the pirate scripts. So it's gonna start running that so that 90% of your home memory is always used. But what this change supports is that it updated the Give Me More Money script to support both this sort of, I guess, allocation, but also allowing you to specify a fixed number of RAM for your scripts. So let's say that you want 5 gigabytes. You only want to assign 5 gigabytes for your, I guess, your running scripts, and then the rest can be used by the launch fleet script. What this change will allow you to do is that it's gonna allow you to specify a solid number, and then it's gonna allocate 5 gigabytes of RAM on your own scripts, and then the rest will be used by the fleet script. And the reason for this is because the higher your home server's memory, the more this percentage allocation becomes somewhat irrelevant. So to give a bit of a demo on how that works in the game, if we close down the Give Me More Money script here, and then so that we can rerun it. Um, so the first change is that um, if we specify the percentage, so if you want like a percentage allocation, because you can't be bothered to calculate how much memory you actually need for all of your active scripts, you can do that by just passing in the percentage value, so like that. If it's not percent, so let's say 90A for example, it's gonna throw you some sort of validation, so it always needs to end with the percent symbol. But if it's 90%, what this means is that 90% of your home server's memory will always be allocated to something. If we go to active scripts here and then find our home server, you would see that 90% of our home server is actually being used. The second change is that if you specify a whole number, so let's say, maybe I want 50 gigabytes of RAM in my home server that's always free, then you can just type in 50, and this one will allow you to specify that I only want 50 gigabytes always free, and then the rest can be allocated to some sort of pirate script. So if we type in free here, you would see that there's at least 50 gigabytes that's available to us at our disposal. And then in terms of the code, let's go back to the Give Me More Money script. Basically, I changed the home RAM. So before this was defaulted to 0, but now it's defaulted to null, just so that I can figure out whether or not the user wants to allocate some of the home server RAM. And then if we scroll down to the validation, so I modified it into something that's a little bit bigger. So before I only basically just checked whether or not this flag data is between 0 and 1, but that's no longer the case with this new change. So I did some checks here. So if it's not a number, I first check whether or not this string it ends with a percentage symbol. If it doesn't, then it's gonna throw an error. And then also after that, if it's a valid syntax, I make sure that it's a number between 0 and 100. So if you put in 0 here, it's not gonna work. So if you want 0 RAM, just don't specify the home RAM at all. Otherwise, so if it's not one of these percent symbols or like percent allocation, then it means that it's probably some sort of floating point, so you want a fixed number of RAM. So I just do a simple validation where I verify that the home server RAM, this home RAM input, it doesn't exceed the maximum home RAM here. And then in terms of changes on the script here, so I created a new function, which is get home server max RAM. Basically what this does is that if it's not a number, so it's the percent, it then grabs the input percentage, which converts it into a number between 0 and 1. And then I grab the percentage of the maximum home RAM as the home server's maximum RAM that we can allocate. Otherwise, I just return the difference between the server's max RAM and the fixed value that you inputted. And then after that, I just did some changes on the get home server here. So I check whether the home RAM is null to set the I guess the crate ship to default to 0 free RAM. Otherwise, I just call that function on the server max RAM, and then everything works as expected, as you saw there. So yeah, so that's some of the code changes that I created. And then on to some of the changes on the YouTube channel, and also the the Bitburner repo, the GitHub repo that I created. If you don't care about contributing to this repository or the channel, then it's okay. You can leave the video now. But if you're interested in I guess contributing your scripts or your own creation onto this repository, then feel free to stay here and watch the rest of the video. Alright, so just to give a bit of a context as to why I made these changes, basically when I initially created this Bitburner automation series, I was actually originally intending to just make the series as sort of like a dumping ground for all my thought process. I didn't really imagine that people would be watching these videos. And the more that I do these videos and answer your questions and receive feedback, the more I realize that this series is slowly growing into something a little bit more than what I originally intended. And it made me wonder whether or not the reason for this is because there's a lack of support or that sort of thing. But it made me sort of realize that there needs to be some sort of centralized place where people can just refer to for any script references and whatnot. There is the Discord, the Bitburner Discord community server, which is extremely helpful. So if you're not part of that, all you have to do is go to Reddit on Bitburner, and then there's usually a post that says the Discord greater than Reddit or something like that, and then there's an invite link there. So to join that, that's how you join that. So you go to Reddit, you go to that post, and then you go click on that invite link, and you're gonna have a whole bunch of other developers and programmers that's willing to support you on your journey on your Bitburner game. But one thing I realized though is that there's no centralized location where you can locate all the scripts that's available for your game. So I've decided to create this Bitburner automation repo as the centralized place where people can contribute their scripts into, as well as reference some of the GitHub repositories that other people is willing to share within the community. So let's go through some of the changes here. So before the Bitburner automation repo only had the stable folder and then an array of episode folders. But what I actually did was I changed it so that the stable folder is basically the same thing, so serves the same purpose. It contains all the scripts that I'm currently using within my game and is basically prone to some of the bug fixes. I also have the episodes folder, so I just group all the episodes folder into one place just so that there's less clutter in the repo itself. But this episode folder basically contains a snapshot of my code at the time of recording the episode. And the reason for this is because my scripts evolve over time, and I know that in maybe a few months time the auto deploy script will look completely different from what the auto deploy script looks like in the stable folder. So as people are watching these videos, they can have a place to refer back to and then see how the code evolves over time. And then the third folder here is the community folder. So basically this community folder contains all the scripts that some of my viewers have contributed to the Bitburner repo. Also some of the references to some of the scripts that you guys have been looking into as well. So basically the structure for this community folder is underneath it is gonna have your username. So I already created one for Cadwin, who contributed this really cool Git download script that allows you to download the stable scripts onto your own game automatically, which is really cool. So if you want updates and whatnot, you can just run the script and it's gonna update all of these scripts here for you. So thank you for that, Cadwin. But also it also houses the README file, and this README file would contain all the links to other individuals that you guys refer to. I know that some of my viewers have other individuals that they pull scripts from, but it would be nice if all of that is shared into one place so that other people that's completely new to the game would also know that this repository exists, and then they can go to it to base their solutions on. So yeah, so that's the changes to the I guess the repo. What I actually want to go through is how to contribute to this, because it is very confusing if you're completely new to programming or have never used Git before. So there's really two ways that you can contribute to the repo. The first way is by raising issues, which is probably the easiest one. So if just to give a bit of a context for anyone else that's never used GitHub or Git before, basically you can see it as sort of like your Google Drive, but for developers. And the reason why developers are so big to adding GitHub into their toolchain is because it allows you to basically create different versions of your script without worrying about breaking some of the existing stuff that's already there. And it's very handy for software development, especially really big projects with a lot of people inside it. To raise an issue within GitHub, all you have to do is you go to this issues tab here. You would see that there's already a few issues that I've raised myself whenever there's YouTube comments that's worth investigating, or some of the issues that's raised by other individuals as well. So I do look at this and I do comment on them. So if you experience any bugs, it's much easier to just raise it directly in this, and then I can have a look and review whether these changes are there or not. To raise an issue, all you have to do is press this button here, the new issues button, give it a title, give it some sort of description, and then you just press the submit new issue and it's gonna show up in the list here. The second way of contributing is via pull requests. So via pull request is a little bit more involved than the previous one, because this one requires you to make changes directly onto the code, and then basically pull request, you can see it as some sort of like change requests. So if you want to merge your stuff to my stuff, then you can do that via this pull request. And then in order to raise a pull request, you would see that if you clone the code directly into your own repository, it's not gonna work because you don't have permissions to write on this repository, but you do have permissions to write on your own repository. If you see this fork button here, this is basically fork. It's basically just copying this repository on your own account. So if we go to this temporary accounts repository, you would see that I don't have anything yet. But as soon as I fork this, so I create a fork, it's gonna basically just copy all the contents of that repository into my own repository, and then it's gonna allow you to make changes as well. And I'm pretty sure that you can also sync it up with whatever is upstream. So you can see here, fetch upstream. So if there's any changes in the main branch or that sort of thing, you can fetch upstream, and it's gonna fetch and merge it directly onto your own repo as well, which is really cool. To make changes, all you have to do is you want to clone your own repository. You want to copy the link here. So copy that, because this one allows you to clone the repository in your own local machine. And then you open up terminal. So if you're using Mac, generally Git is already installed for you, so you don't have to worry about. So as soon as you type in Git, if you've never used Git before, it's gonna tell you, do you want to install Xcode Developer Tools? And then this Xcode Developer Tools generally includes Git inside it. But if you're using things like Windows, all you have to do is you want to Google install Git in your own thing, and then it's gonna provide you with Git Bash. But the commands are basically the same for both machines. So as soon as you install Git, to clone your own repository, you wanna type in git clone and then paste in the link of that repository. And this one will basically just download a copy of your scripts onto your own machine. So if we type in ls, you would see that there's Bitburner automation here. And then we open it up using VS Code, and then let's open up the terminal. So whenever you clone a repo, you're always going to start off at the main branch. And you can view branches as some sort of like a version of your source code. So it's sort of like a snapshot of the state of your source code. That's as simple as I can explain it. But the first thing I always do whenever I clone a repo or fork a repo is I usually create a new branch for any changes that I'm making. So I can create a new branch by typing in git checkout -b and then the branch name. So let's say it's sample changes. So to give a breakdown of this command, checkout is saying I want to switch from one branch to the other, and then -b is saying I want to create that new branch. If we type that command again, you would see that it's gonna throw an error, and the reason for this is because -b is only used for branches that doesn't exist. And then if it does exist, then you wanna just type in git checkout, and that's gonna work. So that's creating branches. The second thing that you have to know is how to uh, basically make changes. So let's say that for this branch, I want to update this README with a sample link. So I just go sample link down here, and then that's it. So that's that's the only change I'm gonna make. If you type in git status, it's gonna show you information as to what branch you're in, as well as some of the unstaged changes. So whenever you make changes in Git, you want to stage these changes first. So it's sort of like, you know, I'm preparing this to be pushed somewhere else. So I want to finalize these changes, sort of deal. So you want to stage your changes first, and to stage your changes, you want to git add, and then the folder name, or if you want to add everything, stage everything, you just want to git add dot. So for me, the best practice is to specify the paths or add everything that you want to commit manually. Never use git add dot unless you're super confident in your abilities, but it's good to always do git add and then the folder name. And then this one will allow you to stage these changes and ready to be committed. So commit is sort of like I want to solidify these changes. I'm like staging is sort of like I'm ready for this to be finalized, and then commit is sort of like I will finalize these changes. So you can do that by typing git commit -m and then the message name sample changes. And this one will basically finalize your changes, so it's gonna create a new like commit ID and whatnot that you can revert back to. And then after that you can push these changes. So generally you type in git push, but since this is a new branch, then you just you want to type in a few extra stuff. So git push -u origin, and then the sample changes, so the branch name, like so. I'm expecting it to throw an error, and the reason for this is because I'm not logged in as casually silent in GitHub. So my Git is currently logged in my main account, so I don't have permissions to push. But it, in theory, it's gonna work. So it's gonna have all your changes on that branch as soon as you push. And then whenever you make new changes, you just go git push all the time, and it's gonna push to the remote branch. But I'm not gonna go over and log into my casually silent account because my intention is to delete that account. But I'll walk you through the process for raising a new pull request to another repo. All right, so as soon as you create your changes on your main branch on your repository, what you have to do next is you want to go to your own repository here, the forked repository, and then you want to go to pull request, and then you want to press this new pull request button. And what this one will allow you to do is that it's gonna allow you to raise a new pull request on my own main repository. But since there isn't anything to any changes or anything, so usually your branch is gonna be there as soon as you pushed it. But if there's any changes, it's gonna allow you to create this new pull request, and then it's gonna get raised in the list here. You can see that there's a few of my viewers has already done that, which is really good. So thank you for that. But as soon as you raise that, it's gonna show up here, which is really nice. And then after that, I'm just gonna review it, may suggest some changes, and then merge it in as soon as I'm happy. So yeah, so that's the rundown as to how to contribute to the repository. So in terms of what's next in this Bitburner series, basically I'm gonna be spending a few weeks repeating some of the bit nodes I've already completed. So I'm gonna be repeating bitnode 1 and bitnode 3, and the reason for this because I need the stats boost to support me in the next bitnode, which is bitnode 5. But during that time, if I ever encounter any, I guess, interesting ways to start up after a soft reset or improve the way I do things, then that's when I'm gonna start recording the videos. Um, but if there isn't, then expect another massive delay between the series because it does take a while to create these videos because it's entirely random. So yeah, so that's it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.